Long hours.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for coming out to today's press conference for Ohio University's football signing class of 2005. Please you turn off your cell phones in case you still have them on so that we don't have any distractions. Also, Coach will make some opening remarks and then we'll go to our question and answer period. I hope by now each of you has the press release. We also have some sheets that have a little bit of a breakdown on the class as far as where they're from and the position groups. And if any of our media relations staff can assist you afterwards, please let us know. So at this time, we'll turn over to Coach Solich.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. It's good to be up in front of you to visit a little bit about the incoming class. We're very excited about the group of players. And we had a large graduating senior class, which opened up a number of scholarships that we were able to give out. And that was good. The thing that I worried about a little bit coming in was we had such a short period of time to put it all together and to acquire their signatures. And looking back on it, the staff has done a great job. I really feel good about our 9 assistant coaches and what they've been able to accomplish in a very short period of time. I truly believe that this staff is an excellent staff in terms of recruiting. 9 guys on the staff that did a very good job, and that's not always the case. And in fact, normally that's not the case. These guys probably got as much done in a short period of time as any staff that I've been associated with. So really appreciate their efforts. I think one thing that was really very good was the outgoing staff was of value to us and on that end of it. They were willing to share information about who they were recruiting, who they had offered, and of course we counted a great deal on those guys knowing what recruiting was about. So those are the players that we started to watch film on when we started immediately to put it all together. So their help was greatly appreciated. Our players did a great job. The biggest thing about recruiting is when you get them on campus, you need to have them have a good weekend. And players become a very important part of that because when they get an opportunity to be around the players, they get a feel for what your players are all about. And in getting a feel for what they're all about, it's either they feel comfortable or they don't feel comfortable at your place. And because of how our players handled things and what they were all about, we had a very high rate of players accepting scholarships with the number that was brought in. And when you really look at it, 3 recruiting weekends with a few people brought in at midweek in terms of the recruiting process. So it really was a team effort. Appreciate what everybody did in putting this together. Our coaches had, we worked basically over Christmas. They took a couple days off to go home for Christmas, took a day off to go home to their wife and family over New Year's. And other than that, they were working through the holiday period and have worked and traveled a lot right up till signing date. We actually have 27 incoming players. 3 of those players are players that we're able to put back into last year's numbers, so they don't count on the initials. 2 of those players are junior college players, and a third is from a prep school. And all 3 will be here for spring ball, so that should play out very well for us. On the other 24, we have 12 players from Ohio, and as you look at it, really we traveled the state of Ohio to get these players, and that was with an intent. We certainly want to do a great job of recruiting the state of Ohio. We know that will be the bloodline for us in not only this year but the overall future of the program. So we will work at recruiting Ohio very, very hard. As you look at the players that we recruited in this staff, we really got more offensive and defensive linemen from the state of Ohio with those numbers if you look at it closely, and we think that was a need for us and a need to try to get a few bigger bodies into the program also. 11 different states represented in the class, which meant we traveled all over. The fact that we were able to put this staff together and they came from different parts of the country helped somewhat in the recruiting process. It's not over for us. We'll continue to recruit some walk-ons, and it's been obvious to me and the coaches on our staff that the walk-on program is vital to what we're going to be all about. So we'll continue to recruit some walk-ons very hard in order to help booster this incoming class. So we're excited about the class. We're glad that the signing date is now come and gone. We did get everybody's signature. It gives us an opportunity now to start being around our players, start to be on campus here, and start to also sit down as an offensive staff, defensive staff, and start to put things together. But it's a little easier doing it knowing that, at least from our end of it, that we feel we've got an excellent class coming in. Any questions?
From the messenger, basically you guys had 1 month to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Did you alter your approach in recruiting them? You had such a short timetable and were behind the eight ball, so to speak, as far as the time went. How did you guys alter your approach or the way you approach?
We didn't go through the normal process that it would take to first of all scholarship a player. I relied a great deal on the position coaches and coordinators, and I was just another body looking at film and trying to make some decisions on players. And so we all sat down and with a ton of film in front of us and just watched film on a daily basis until we started to feel comfortable that we would be able to put together a big enough pool that we would be able to go out there and sign the numbers that we knew we wanted to sign. And that was a little nerve-wracking in that, you know, it's a little different story if you're signing 10 to 12 guys, but if you're signing 24 and can count some back and that goes to 27, then that's a lot of players to go out and find in a very short period of time. The thing that was not amazing to me, but was really very good for us, was that the players that we identified as players that we wanted in the system seemed to really have a very good interest. And once we got them here on campus, they loved what this school was about. They got along with the players well. The coaching part of it seemed to fit for them, and so we were able to get a great number of players out of really a fairly small pool. If you look at this pool compared to what we'll have next year, we'll have a much bigger pool, and probably only be able to offer 10 to 12 scholarships next year. And so, you know, we'll be able to go through it a little more thoroughly and from a little different angle. But really a good job by everybody doing it in such a short period of time. After we viewed the film, then it was a matter of phone call after phone call to high school coaches, to also to the players themselves, visiting with parents. One thing that we were fortunate about was that a lot of parents or parent or guardian were able to come in with their son. And once you are able to get parents in or a parent in, your chances of getting a young man seems to rise. And the parents sometimes seem to look at things from a little different angle than what the players do. But the player doesn't have to now take this information, go home, and try to sell the parents on what's at Ohio University. They're able to see it for themselves, and so that played out very big for us. And so we worked hard at trying to get parents to come in with their sons on visits.
County Pastor comes from the messenger. I just was wondering that some of the players that we had talked to seemed that they hadn't even really strongly considered Ohio until they found out of the new coaching administration. How many times did you find that to be the case, and how many of these gentlemen are players that were interested in Ohio with the previous coaching?
Obviously, there were some that had an interest, but anytime there's a coaching change, that interest can all of a sudden wave on you, and I think we had some of that. We also had some that maybe didn't consider Ohio at all, Ohio University at all, and were then able to, with the change, step forward and want to be part of a recruiting process and taking a look at Ohio University. So, I think the fact that we were able to put together such a good staff with really excellent backgrounds and proven track record, I think probably helped a great deal in the recruiting process. That's a good question, and it'll be very interesting. You know, we have somewhat of a young team coming back. We have approximately 13 starters, 7 on defense, 6 on offense, and that's dependent upon how you look at it from the defensive end of it, because in going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, you know, that number can vary 1 or 2. But approximately 13 returning starters coming back. But I think everybody understands that we're starting from ground zero. You know, guys are going to have to earn their jobs, and that'll be the case every spring. And they'll have to earn their jobs. There'll be great competition out there in the spring. That does not lock a job up. We will look at incoming freshmen. We'll have a couple scrimmages. We'll have a number of practices. Some positions it's easier to advance as far as you have to advance in order to play football your first year. Some of these kids will be able to do it. Some will have the physical makeup to do it, and some will have the mental makeup to do it. And of course, at times, the position, if you're not deep at that position, enters into it. And it would be difficult for me to take a rough guess as far as numbers, but I do know that basically we're not going to rule anybody out. And but as you go through your first week of practice, your first 2 weeks of practice, you need to get reps to players that are going to be lining up for you when the kickoff occurs, and so we'll have to make some decisions somewhat early, but we'll take a look at the guys in that freshman class.
Coach, did your trip to Hawaii help with this process at all, other than maybe giving you a little sunshine?
Well, it probably got me out of the way for our coaches to go out and do a good job and not goof them up. But you know, I really worried about it. You know, it seemed like a heck of a deal 5 or so months ago when it was offered to me. But as the closer it got, and knowing that we were in the middle of recruiting and the large number of players that we needed to get committed, I was concerned about it. But a lot of good people stepped forward and put me in that bowl, and so I stuck with it. I think our coaches just took up the slack there and did a great job. We got some publicity out of it, which I'm sure didn't hurt us, you know. But I was nervous about taking the week off.
Was there anything that you knew of that might have come out of that trip that might not have otherwise, or did it kind of not affect?
Well, you know, we were in front of people. That was obvious from the conversations with parents and recruits when we had them here on campus. Many of them saw the game. And not just that weekend, but then the next weekend, those that came in maybe saw it at home, and so at least Ohio University was being thrown in front of them again, you know, and that's probably not all bad in the recruiting process. You know, still able to make some phone calls from over there, so you know that was able to keep some things alive by doing that.
Is there one guy that you feel was the top recruit that you were very excited about to get that signature?
No, I don't want to single anybody out because, you know, if you look at the tape, the highlights of these guys that we put together, I mean, as you go through them, you'll be excited about every one of them. I mean, there are things that they show that will excite you, and you know, it's obvious that there are certain positions that we need to booster right away, and you know, in doing that. You know, some of those guys seem to look a little bit better to you, you know, only because they may be playing next year right away, you know. But it's obvious that we think it's a very good class, and I won't single anybody out.
Were you surprised you were able to fill all those spots or all those scholarships, given the constraints and the timetable you were working with?
I was concerned about that from day one, but you know, as our coaches got out on the recruiting trail and the response that they were getting as they were going around visiting players in their home and at the school. And then after the first weekend, when we had such a high rate of those saying they're going to come versus the number that was in, that made me feel much more comfortable. And I just thought, well, if we can put another couple of weekends like this together, we're going to be able to get it done. And we were able to do that.
Mid-major school as compared to Nebraska, how different was that? Not even just as far as image-wise, but financially and other things. What were some of the constraints that you've never had to deal with before?
Well, we really didn't find ourselves limited. You know, number one, it was such a short period of time that you can only spend so much money in 4 weeks. We worked at it, you know, but we think the results will definitely be well worth it. But you know, everybody in the administration backed us in terms of what we were trying to get accomplished with the recruiting class, and that certainly made things so much easier. Recruiting to Ohio University, to Nebraska, you know, there are key points that you sell. This place has as many key points as any place in the country in terms of why a player should come. And once they get on campus, they like it. And you know, and if you want to go to school and get a great education, if you want to spend 4 or 5 years maximizing your athletic talent, we got the coaches to help you do that. We're in a great conference. We have the university to help you get a degree in a great university. So it's a good deal to recruit to here.
Coach, for the benefit of those on satellite, can you talk a little bit about your recruiting? You had 3 out of Cincinnati, 3 out of Columbus, 3 out of Youngstown, 1 out of Morgantown. Kind of hit the pockets that you hit, some of those areas.
Okay, well, as I mentioned earlier, it was obvious that we wanted to do a great job in the state of Ohio, and it'll be an ongoing process trying to build relationships and throughout the state, because you know, we didn't touch every coach, of course. It'd be impossible to do, but we do want them to understand that you know, we're kind of in this together. I know what high school coaching is about. Spent 13 years doing it. I love it from the high school angle. Appreciate what those guys are all about. So we'll try to continue to build good relationships with the high school coaches in this state. But I'll just go through a few here on that end of it. In Columbus, Idris Lawrence, Josh Phoebus, and Tommy Stuck. You know, Stuck is from Lancaster, but I'm kind of considering it Columbus. Most of you probably don't, but you got to go through it to get to Columbus, so that's part of it. And you know, Stuck, of course, an offensive lineman that we think has excellent potential, and we think will play early. And of course, quarterback. You know, we only have 3 quarterbacks in the system right now, with one of them being a walk-on. So Phoebus was extremely important, and Lawrence was a player that was recruited as a defensive back by a lot of top schools, and so we felt very good. He's from an excellent school. In fact, all 3 of them are from an excellent school in that area, and so it was a big area for us. You know, Cincinnati, we ended up getting 2 players, but again, those 2 players actually run the defensive side of it. Kenko, you know, is a defensive lineman for us, and Joe will probably be, you know, he's the only linebacker that we recruited. So we recruited 1 linebacker this year because of the number of linebackers that are in the program right now. Cleveland, Connor Riley, defensive lineman. Schuessler, offensive lineman, and David White, an offensive lineman. So again, you saw that you know, in Cleveland is an area that I grew up in, but you know, really that had no effect in us getting players in Cleveland. I think what did it was we had coaches that hit the area hard, and there was interest there, and then once the interest was there, things seemed to fall in place. Youngstown, we have 3 guys, and of course Carl Pelini is from the Youngstown area, and so you know, that seemed to play out well for us. Malat, Philbins, and Dathan, all in the offensive or defensive line, all linemen, and so you know, we think that will be when you look at the pockets there. And then Jamison Hardkeef, defensive lineman from the Dayton area. You look at the offensive and defensive linemen that we got from in-state, and you know, that was vital to us, critical to us. And you ought to be able to find offensive and defensive linemen in this state. You know, it's a great state for high school football, a lot of players, and if you work it hard, you ought to have a chance to get guys in. So we'll continue to hit it very hard.
Staying with the linemen, more than a third
Well, we don't have enough offensive linemen in the program to start with, and so we knew that we were going to have to, across the board. We took 5 offensive linemen. You know, we wanted to make sure that that we had a guy per position there, and we'll still try to recruit maybe a couple walk-ons from the offensive line standpoint. Same thing with defense. You know, you look, they did a great job defensively last year. They were a little bit undersized, but they used a lot of movement to compensate for that. But there's not a, you know, when you go to a 4-3, you're really adding another down lineman is what you're doing. And so we needed to make sure that with that in mind that we recruited heavily in the defensive line. A lot of those guys have got growth potential. Some will start off as a rush in, and maybe as they go through their career, there's a chance that a couple of them may move inside.
With so many of the MAC players doing well in the NFL this year, were you able to use that as a recruiting tool at all?
Yeah, you know, there was a few articles that came out talking about the MAC conference, and one was in USA Today, and certainly that was able to be used because players definitely read that, parents read that, and you know, you're able to build off of that. I think the MAC conference name is just growing, and the conference is I believe just kind of taken off, and it'll continue to take off. It's getting a lot of publicity, a lot of play from the broadcasters, regardless whether you're talking college football or whether you're talking pro football. There's a lot of talk about the MAC conference, and that will only benefit us.
A lot of times in high school football, guys play both ways. They get to the college level and they're only specified in one position. Do you see any guys on this team that could play both ways on the college level? I know you've coached a guy in Eric Crouch who played quarterback, and he just signed a pro contract to play on the defensive side of the ball. So any kind of athletes that you see being two-dimensional?
Oh yeah, we have a fair number of guys that could line up at more than just one position. Some could line up on either side of the ball. You know, Chris Garrett, you look at him, even though he's a very small player, he's about as quick as they come. He could line up as a receiver, a running back. He could line up as a defensive back. We think he has a chance to be a great return guy. And so you needed to look at some of those things also. We have a great punter in the system. You know, he's going to be gone. We looked at possibly taking a punter. We did not do it this year. But we felt that what we wanted to do was get a guy or two that could possibly return kicks, and we'll look very hard at the players right within our program in terms of returning kicks. But there's a lot of yardage there that goes out the window if you don't have a guy that can field punts and get some things done there. So we recruited with that in mind a little bit. All right, well, thank you, appreciate it.
He's got the same, there's a big, but it's 6 or 7, so I'll ask. Yeah, did he get with you?
Yesterday, yeah.
Oh, did, okay, good.
Called back today.
Okay, good.
So I didn't know if something's wrong or.
No, I don't check.
Down to the final buzzer, but Red Berenson and the Wolverines, they're celebrating yet another win over Michigan State in what was a fantastic hockey game. Al Montoya gets his 5th win in this series, and the Wolverines hang on to win 5-4.
Well, it sure was a great game tonight, and you look at this from Michigan State's standpoint, it's tough to be swept by Michigan, but I'm sure we'll keep this in mind. And on Michigan's standpoint, what a great weekend. They win both games, one on the road, one at home. But tonight was a special game.
It was a very special game. Now it's time for our Comcast high-speed internet play of the game. And I don't think anybody will be surprised by this, Mr. Richland.
This is just a great play at any level. If you can skate down the ice through every single player, forehand and backhand, beat the goalie, you're doing something right. And this TJ Hensick, if he doesn't get some consideration for the Hoey Baker this year, something's wrong, because he is a dynamic forward.
He had quite a night. Michigan and Michigan State, another classic. This has been a presentation of Comcast Local. For Sean Richland and all of our crew, my name is Ben Holden. Once again, our final, Michigan 5, Michigan State 4. Thanks for watching.